we're about to foam this background. I've got a few cork bark tubes that I've selected. The first part of this process is to just get a base down and get some of the cork bark pieces in place and let that cure and then build up on that. So I've got a variety of different sizes, small, big. They are all sort of got holes in. Now I will block up some of these holes with foam at a later point, but for now I'm literally just going to put this sort of base down. Now the foam I'm using is the Oazi one, so it is sort of waterproof and stuff. And what I'm going to do, so I haven't used this one yet, but if we just start sort of laying down a base. I think you have to hold it upside down. So hello guys, really not happy. I bought some black expanding foam with a shorter nozzle, and as you can probably see by that, it's rubbish. So this is the Oazi one. It's about 20 quid. The nozzle doesn't work, there's no back pressure, it literally just pours out the top of that. So waste of 20 odd quid. Not happy at all. It was for Amazon, I might be able to change it. So what I'm going to do is revert back to my tried and trusted one, which is the Sudal expanding foam, albeit it's not the colour I want it to be. Now this is cold, so hopefully it will work okay. And the idea is that what I wanted to do was just lay down a short base to get some of these cork pieces in. So let me make a start on that. It's a shame because I did like the idea of the black one. And as you can see by the back of this cork bark, it already had a go. So the idea is I just want it to sort of push back a bit. And then likewise, I have this piece that I wanted to go in as well. Now I probably am going below here, the line of where the substrate's going to be, but I'm not too worried about that at the moment. And they do bubble for a bit after you've done them, so need to be careful where I position this. Okay, so that was the second piece that we were going to put in. I was sure. Did I have that a different way before? Is that the piece I was putting in? It must be. So it's actually not where I wanted it, but that's okay. another 2 pieces. So the only downside with this one is it does come out quite quickly. So I think the plan was that we were going to put in a piece about there and a piece about there. And then just let that expand, and I may do some cork panels on the side. I'm just thinking about this twisting a little bit. And what I'll probably do is fill these ends up as well, fill these with soil. So obviously this is laying on its back. I'll probably fill this one and fill this one, and then sort of fill these up. And the idea of these, I want these to be planted in, but we'll let that sort of set, and then we'll work from there. Morning everyone, I hope you're well. So this is the back of the terrarium, and what I've done, I'm still obviously a work in progress, is the first branch there, that's sort of jutting out, I've filled that, and I will cap the ends with a bit of soil and cocoa or moss. I still need to sort of just fill the sides in here because it isn't as I want it, so I'm just going to sort of fill those up and trim them back. That side still needs trimming, and I still need to go down a bit further there. I have placed a log in the centre here, and that will get filled with soil, so I will seal in the bottom because that will be underwater as with these other logs. And then what I've done, I still need to trim this, is I've put a shelf in, and the reason I put a shelf in is just watching my other dart frogs. They do like to sort of get up and hide and sort of climb. Sorry for the sound there, I knocked the microphone. They do like to get up, so yes, they've got a couple of branches and a couple of pieces here. I will fill the end of this one, so I'm going to block up the end of that one, and this will again get filled with soil, as will the other bits that are still with holes in, and I'm going to plant in those. I still need to do something with this side, and I think I'm going to build a side structure. Now I've got some bits of cork, I might panel that side, but I'm not going to come out all the way, so one side's going to be pretty open and the other side won't be. And then what I'll do is, as with the other one, where these come over in the sides, I'll paint with a bit of acrylic paint just to sort of cover that and give it a clean up. And this is pretty easy to cut. I'm just using a very small thin snap off blade at the moment, the long retractable ones, which I've probably dropped on the floor. And I'm a nightmare when I cut, I sort of drop it on the floor and I'll sweep that up later. But to sort of give you an idea, if I try and sort of turn this round, of what this will look like, so I don't know how well this is going to work. That's sort of what you'll look into, and if that sort of gives you a better idea. But I'll continue on. I may do a bit of time lapse and stuff in the next section, so we'll sort of get that going, and I'll speak to you shortly. As I've said many times, I'm a nightmare for forgetting to video stuff. So I'll put this next bit of foam in on that shelf, just fill in the backs in. I'll wait for that to sort of set and cure. I have filled up to the top, and I do need to sort of cut out little grooves and stuff for equipment because I've foamed over the back of those, but that's easy enough. The reason I've foamed all the way up to the top is just simply because my other tank, what happens is they get right into the gap between the top of where I foamed before and the top. So I wanted to try and avoid that and actually get them sitting up on branches and ledges and stuff like that. So that's pretty much the foaming done. I may tweak it or do a bit extra. I may even sort of fill into that piece there, but I am probably just going to cut that back flush on an angle. And the next bit then is I need to get a cocoa brick soaked and expanded, so in order that I can just then go and dry that back out, which seems counterproductive, and you can't not do that because it's compressed, so you do need it to expand. Get that dried out. I've ordered some silicone. Need to obviously carve and trim this down a bit once it's cured, and then we can sort of move on, and I'll try and video the process of my silicone in it, but don't hold your breath. I know I keep saying it, but I'm an absolute nightmare for forgetting to record stuff. So I've tipped it over on, we've obviously foamed everything up now. I've tipped it over on its front, so sort of, let me see if I can show you that. That's sort of going to be the view. I've put this shelf in just for the height, I mentioned it earlier. I've started siliconing, so this foam creates a lot of bubbles, and I've just filled up with silicone, and this won't be the final cut, but what I've done is I've siliconed into, just check that bit there, I've siliconed into the edges and the corners and the bits where I've filled up the tubes and stuff. So I'm going to leave a little bit of a hole in there. This will pull out eventually, it's just that I've packed it with dried soils, and then the pots I'm going to plant in. So where those holes are, that hole, that hole, that hole, and potentially that hole, I might put trailing plants in there. But once I've filled the substrate in, I'm going to pack these with soils and then build in them, and they do drain. So this one might not, because I've sort of filled up at the bottom, but I can easily drill a couple of holes in the sides of those corks so they do drain and they don't flood and get sodden. But we're slowly getting there. I'll try and record myself doing the other bits of the silicone. Now what I did do, I've sort of left lumps and gaps in here deliberately, like so, just to try and create a bit of texture and a bit of grooving in there as well. But we'll crack on and we'll get done. And I'll try, as I say, I'll try and record the next section. But it is literally just cover it in silicone with my trusty nitrile gloves. Run all your fingers through it, really make sure it gets in all the gaps, and then put a load of soil on it, which I've got in there, some dry. I don't know if there'll be enough in there to finish, there might be, but I'm drying some more, but I can use the other as a base anyway for the soils and stuff. So let's crack on, and I'll catch up with you on the next clip. Back again, and an absolute nightmare forgetting to record stuff. So what happens is I get to the point where I'm bored sitting, and I think, I know what I'll do, I'll go in the shrimp room, I'll do a bit, and I literally just crack on and forget to record it. So I'm just going to flip the camera and sort of show you where we're up to. This is the back of the terrarium, which looks absolutely horrible with the foam on. I mean, it will never be seen, it doesn't really matter, it's going towards the back of the rack anyway. I could paint over it from the back to make it look tidy, but you'll never see it. We've got it on its back and side at the moment. If I try and lift the door for you to give you an idea, we've siliconed this side piece and we've put a coating on that. I might need to do a few little touch-ups because I can see the odd white spot there. The top of it's done. The reason I'm doing this in sections is because I'm doing it in the shrimp room and I've got frogs in the shrimp room, so this gives off like a vinegar smell, acetone, I can't describe the smell, vinegar. And if we sort of look at that, I know there's a reflection of a light here. But if we do look at that, that will give you an idea of what that will look like. It's almost like trees in a forest, and then there's a ledge sticking out. I'm not sure if the length of the ledge is too much for what I want. I've got a feeling that I'm going to actually trim that back, just put a knife through it or score it and break it, just so there's a small ledge rather than a really long one jutting out. I think it'll be nice and small, but because it's now in place, I've got to be careful how I do that. I'll probably try and sort of cut little bits out or drill a few holes and go through with the Stanley. Maybe just turn that into a small ledge rather than a big ledge, and then that will give us the forest view with branches and stuff sticking out. Hopefully we'll get the background finished tomorrow, and then we're 48 hours to cure that. Once that's cured, I'll put it back in situ. I'll put the drainage layer in. Excuse me. I'll put the soil in, and then we'll start planting. I do have plants. I've got probably too many plants, so there are plants that can come in from there. I've got a box of plants here with loads of bromeliads and some other plants. I did buy a ficus oak leaf, a creeping plant, but I think I've lost it. Hopefully it will come back and we can get that in, because that will look really nice. But if it doesn't, then I'm probably going to use this ficus, which is called Pamela Sunny, and I'm hoping to strip this down and use the clay balls from the bottom of that. I think I've mentioned this before, I do have a slug in there, and I need to find him because I don't really want to transfer him to the new one. But that's me done for the day. I'm going to go and put my feet up, take some medication, and see you guys tomorrow. No surprise then that I did forget to record this section. So what I am going to do is just to sort of try and give you guys a bit of an idea. You have to excuse the way the shadows are. In fact, I think I'm the shadow. So I have put the silicone down, and then literally all I'm going to do is put on a glove. Glove going on. And then carefully with that glove, just make sure that all the silicone is sort of spread out and pushed into the holes and everywhere that I want to try and cover. And there may be bits and blobs that are left over, but I just want to make sure I get into all those sort of nooks and crannies before I put the soil on. So I've got some up here as well. I may need a bit more, but where it's thick, or where I think it's too thick, that's a really good opportunity to push that bit round. And if I need to put any more on, I can just get a blob from somewhere, or I mean, I've got plenty in the gun, so a blob there, because I don't think there's enough in here, or it's not sticking very well. And you may get bits of stuff sort of come out and go where you don't want it to go, but that's the whole point. You know, you've got sort of full reign over this. And then likewise with this bit. And what I may end up doing after the event is, once this is all cured and sort of dried, what I may do is just go up the sides with a razor on the glass, just to sort of clear it from the glass. These are the tricky bits really, because I don't want too much on the cork, because if I put too much on the cork, then we sort of defeat the object. The whole point is to sort of mask the cork or hide the areas where the cork are. So the bits up the side there, 100% I'm going to sort of clean those, and my fingers come out the glove. And this bit here, I've gone over this twice because there were bits missing off the original where I'd put it. So I'm just going to go over again, make sure I get good coverage. And then the next section is take the glove off. So that's one glove going in the bin. Hopefully I don't get any on me, and I have this time, unfortunately. So let's get that off my thumb with a bit of tissue I had standing by. Put on another glove, and then using my bag of soil that we'd got dry, just put the soil over the areas that you want to cover. I haven't finished, so it's not just a case of pushing those over. And I've got bits of moss in this soil as well. And then once you've sort of got the coverage that you want, I had enough soil in there to do what I wanted to do. It is simply just a case of pushing the soil into place and sort of massaging that in, or if there's a bit you're not 100% about, just sort of keep going and pushing in as much as you can and sort of get into all the gaps that you've covered. And if there's bits where they're a bit sparse, just move some substrate from somewhere else and push it in. So there, as an example, I can see there that there's no, I haven't covered there. It just literally came away in my hand. So, not a problem. We'll get the gun, put a nice big blob down there. Don't be shy. Got to keep remembering to release the pressure off this gun, otherwise I end up with a big pile of silicone on the garage floor, on the shrimp room floor. And then literally just cover that, or find some loose and cover it and push it in. And if it sort of pops back up like that has, what I tend to find works pretty well is if you put a bit of the moss over. See if I can find the moss piece. There's some moss here, look. Or find some that's a bit coarser and drop that over and push that in. So what you're looking to do really is get a finish that's soil really, but I've obviously got bits of moss in mine as well. So you can sort of find bits of moss, so where you've got bits that you patch up. And then once it's sort of finished, you just literally tip this off, vacuum it out or scrape it out, or get it out however you're going to get it out. And then what I do is I go back over in exactly the same way that we've just done with bits of moss. So anywhere where there's holes or it hasn't adhered well, or anywhere you need a touch up, just use bits of moss in there because it sort of covers and it blends in really well. But that's that bit done. I'm away tomorrow. I'm at a wedding, and I'm not really going to get much to do in the shrimp room. I've got to go and get a haircut before we go off to the wedding, and a beard trim and stuff, and then I'll it's just sort of worked out well really, because I've got the opportunity now to let that sort of dry, so I hardly get any on my hands when I've used the gloves. But hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into how I've done these backgrounds. I know there's loads of videos on the internet about them, but we'll let that go. Once that's gone, we'll do any touch-ups that are needed. It will get put back in place, and then we'll start doing the substrates and getting the biocultures in and planted and stuff. Just of note then, if I didn't mention it in the previous clip, I did trim down that a bit of cork bark. It was just way too far out. So this is obviously upside down from a camera perspective, but it gives you sort of a bit of a forest feel. And once we've sort of planted in that, it'll look really nice. I may even do something where I cut out a bit here, so the plant's sort of overhanging, not just out of here. Likewise, I could cut out a hole here, I could cut out a hole here, and plant into those holes as well as these. You know, so I've got a hole saw, so it's just looking at it in situ, having a look at it, thinking what will work well for you, and then sort of cracking on with that. But I'll break there and then we'll pick up once this is set, so that's probably going to be Sunday evening. Speak soon. All the foaming's finished. I've now put it in situ. I've put the bottom drain in. It needs a bit of a clean and all the glass wiping and any bits of free silicone cleaning off. I might need to do a couple of little touch-ups. I've noticed a little bit here, but that might just be, yep, that'll do. Sometimes you get little bubbles off the foam that sort of stick out. So the white bit at the bottom there is irrelevant because that's going to obviously be underwater. Well, it'll be under balls, the clay balls. And just, am I happy with it? Yeah, I think so. I'm probably a bit, I'm not 100% about the cork branches at the top. Maybe they'd have been better a bit lower down, but they are what they are, and I know that frogs like to climb, so I've temporarily put the light from the other one on there. I do need to, as I say, give it a bit of a clean. I've done some touch-ups this morning, so I need to sort of get in there, the vacuum, make sure there's no loose substrate on there, and then we can start filling this up and doing what we need to do in the base. I will paint that side because it's visible. Just put a bit of brown over there, and what I've done is I've done the bottom drain so it drops out the side and taps up out there. Bit of a nightmare to get on the bottom drain, soak them in some hot water for a bit and it's fine. But I'll let this settle. That's probably all I'm going to do today. We are off out to a wedding, and I'm just looking at bits to see if there's any touch-ups. I think I can see one there, but it might be a stone. It is a stone, but there is one there that could probably do with touching up. So I'll leave that as it is anyway, and then I think what we'll do is tomorrow I'll try and get the base in and some soil mix that I'm doing, and then what we'll do is we'll start planting that and get that, and I'm going to leave that this time until all the mould phases, the slime mould phases are finished. But I'm relatively pleased with it. They're not too high. I think once we've got plants in there and bits of things trailing down and growing over, I think it'll look really nice. Next phase is to get our wash leaker balls in. So in the other terrarium I created at least 2 inches. Now this one, because of how short this bar is here and the fact that it's got a bottom drain, I don't think we're going to need that amount. So I've washed another couple of litres. Hopefully it will sort of be enough to cover. I'm hoping I can tip this straight in. Still got a little bit in the bucket, but what I'm looking to do is get a nice even layer of balls in. Probably lower than that, to be fair. So I think I will have enough just with this one lot. I do need to pull this one back a bit. I want about 1 inch, and the idea of it is literally just so the soil doesn't. Let's throw this in anyway. The idea of it is so that the soil can drain. You don't want a soggy soil because it's not good for the frogs. It can cause all sorts of problems with their feet. So I will build this sort of up towards the back should I need to. But I want to try and get it as flat as I possibly can. Don't mind sloping it. As I say, I want to try and get it as flat as I can ideally. I did think instead of, while I was waiting for these, to use alpha grog, but I just don't think it's as flexible. I don't think it rolls as nice as the clay balls. Hence me waiting and sticking with the clay balls. So I want to get a bit further back there. Our next step then, now that that's in, and I'm happy with, well, realistically happy with how flat it is to get in a mesh to separate the soil. So this is the mesh I use, it's just a fly screen. Now what I'd normally do is have one piece and I'd cut it in, but because we've got the corners, what I'm going to have, what I want to do is create a piece that comes to here with a slit, and then we'll trim, and then create a piece that goes over that. So I'm going to do this in 2 sections. So I'm just going to measure this and give it a bit of a cut, and then we'll come back and pick up there. I'm not sure how much of this I really want to video, because it is going to be quite tricky. So what I'm trying to do is cut around these trunks at the back, or sort of try and cut around these trunks at the back, even if it means we're sort of cutting verticals just to form a shape. And then once I've got that done, what I can do is we can get this sort of covered. So it is a little bit tricky, this is, and this, I've not done loads of them, so it's my sort of second time, what's my second time building these. And when I did the hardscape, I didn't consider well enough, I don't think, of how I needed to sort of cut these bits in. And what I don't want to do, I don't know if you guys can see this, but on this side, I'm not really going back into this corner. I've got it now, but it sort of took a bit of a while. So let me get this bit in, and then I'll do the front bit. I just want to have a tweak with this, but it's boring, so it's pointless leaving this on camera. We've got that first section in, and in order to hold it in place, I know there's a bit at the bottom and the front. What I want to do is try and get some soil in just to hold it in place. Just a few handfuls of soil, I don't want to put too much in. And it is literally just to hold this down. Specifically over the back corners. Now that I've got those in, I've got an opportunity to sort of trim this edge so that's a little bit neater, but I'm more interested in putting this next piece on, and I do want it to sort of overlap there a little bit. So I'm going to push some of the soil back that's fell forward. So let's get that piece cut. Now we've got the other piece in, I've made sure there's a good overlap here and sort of cut into that log. And we're going to literally just put the next layer of soil in. I do want to slope it backwards a bit, make sure there's a good thick bit of soil, thinner at the front, because we haven't got a lot of height with the way the ventilation is on this Frogs Co tank. The ventilation seems a bit better on the other one. But let's get a few handfuls in and we'll see where we go. What I've done is I've mixed an Arcadia soil that you're supposed to be able to just use on its own, but I've mixed that with some cocoa fibre. Now, not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's what I've done. I'll push this right into the back corners. Make sure it's sort of nice and bedded in. I do want a bit more depth in the back. I'm pretty much going to have mainly leaf litter in the front and plant in the back. And sloping it backwards gives you a bit of perspective as well. It sort of gives you that perspective of a bit of depth. And I probably will have a bit of soil left over here, but I can use that for my isopod tubs. I was keen to get this in as soon as possible because we do have bioactive elements, and I've had them sat in tubs for quite a while. I'm going to put a bit more soil at the front here actually. So try and slope it back a bit, get some depth in the soil for planting, although I'm not planting massive amounts. Might get a brush and sort of brush that off, but I do need to put some soil into the tubs as well. So I do need to grab some soil and put some soil into those. Do want that front a little bit higher, not massively, but just a bit. And I think what I'm going to do is to fill these up, I'm going to use a spoon to put the soil in. So let me go and get a spoon. I'll give it a wash first. Got my spoon, and what I want to do is just, I will fill this front one up, and I'll get a paintbrush and sort of dust off all the soil. But I don't need to fill them up fully, and the reason I don't need to fill them up fully is because if I'm putting plants in them, I need to be able to plant into them, and if they're full, I'm not going to be able to do that. The side one, which I will plant as well, I think I'm literally just going to stuff soil in that until it's full. I've got to be careful because I don't want frogs going in these holes. Well, I don't mind as long as they can get out. So I think that's enough in there. I'll pot and plant in there. This big one at the back is going to be tricky, and I did cut, if you noticed, I did cut out a bit of a half moon in that one. I decided not to put another hole in the front. And what I may need to do with this one is plant the bit in the side before I plant the top, because the bit in the side will then give me something to fill back up to. So I'm just going to crack on with this. I'll get these pots filled and then we'll come back for planting. I didn't record any of the planting, but what we've done is I've got a lovely little begonia down here. I bought them too long ago, that's the problem. The bromeliads have obviously managed to sort of stay active. I've got bromeliad here. I've used a bit of ficus out the old tank, not the dart frog, the one we originally set up, and I've also put a bit of ficus here. Now I want to try and pin that so it grows over here. I've got a bromeliad, different bromeliad, and then at the back I've got, I think it's called an inch plant. Now I'm a bit paranoid that this area is too open, and I did have an oak leaf ficus, but I lost it because I ordered it just way too early, couldn't get it planted. But let's get this sort of sprayed down, make sure everything gets a good soaking. I've not sprayed these sides at all yet. I'm sort of keen to just sort of wash everything down a bit, get some water in the broms. I've washed the soil off most things, just as a biosecurity type of thing, but I didn't do the begonia just because how delicate it is. So I'm hoping that that sort of grows and picks up, but I'm not holding out much hope, if I'm honest. It'll look nicer when there's a light in there, I think, as part of this washing down as well. We'll give it a good soaking. So this is just a pump up sprayer that I'm using at the moment. I do need to invest in so if the camera's shaking, it's because I'm pumping it up. I do need to invest in a misting system. But what I'll do is I'll get the cultures in now. and then we'll put some leaf litter in. So there is quite an open area, and I'm probably going to end up putting another plant, but I want to wait for this to grow in a bit first. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to wait quite a while before I put frogs in here, just to keep an eye on things, make sure the plants are grown in and stuff, and the biocultures have established. So I did find a woodlouse as well on one of the plants, so he's gone in. Extra bit of bio. And then what we'll do first of all then is we'll put in dwarf greys or dwarf spotteds. So just let them settle in. They talk about biosecurity, and then you go and throw in a load of cultures with other media, but how else do you get it in? And the springtails will go in as well. So I'm going to put that whole starter culture in. Probably just give that a bit of a spread out. Give it another spray, just wet that area up a little bit, not massively, just damp it down. And then finally, if I can find them, I did buy some leaf litter. I bought it pre-made leaf litter. I'm not expecting loads from it, to be honest, but you guys know that I can sort my own leaf litter and stuff out anyway. But the leaf litter would literally just be sort of, well, it's food for the isopods, isn't it? But, and I'll get some of the leaf litter in there when I get 5 minutes. So I've got some jackfruit leaves here and all sorts of leaf litter. Probably a bit too hardcore these, but we'll put them in anyway, just as a sort of layer of protection for the plants more than anything, to sort of hold some humidity. These are just jackfruit leaves. I've got loads of them myself. These. Use these in my shrimp tanks. And I suppose I could, if I want to, just, you know, cut them up, rip them up. Leaf litter. It's exactly what it says on the tin. It's leaf litter. So let's litter it. Doesn't have to look neat. Just needs to be there. And hopefully I've not transferred any slugs or anything into here from any of the plants. I'll get some more leaf litter in here. I'll make some. I'll cut some bits up. I don't like the big leaves. They probably work well, to be fair, for the isopods and stuff. I may actually, thinking about it, I've got a bit of cork that I cut off here, so I might sort of put that in just to hold things down and somewhere for the isopods to sit underneath. But that's us for now. I'll get some lighting on. I haven't yet put stats and stuff in there, but I will. And I've got 5 minutes. I probably won't video that, but I've got stats and temp gauges and stuff up here. So that's us for now. I'm going to video it again in a few days, see how it's sort of settling in. I might make some changes, but I think that's from a planting perspective where I want it to be. I do want to try and pin this over here or something. I want it to sort of grow up and over, or maybe over here, in the same way that I've sort of got this bit of ficus sort of coming across that way. I need some gardening wire to just sort of pin things into place, but it is coming out of that top one. So I did want something else, but I lost the plant. I ordered it too early and it was 20 quid. So thanks for watching. Speak to you soon.